Hey guys and girls, Bored now, back with you on this video. I will be talking about The Tourist, Series 2, Episode 3, full spoilers from the start of this review. As always, don't forget, if you're enjoying this video, to give me a like on YouTube. Also subscribe if you are the first time to the channel and want to check out more. And let me know in the comments what you think of this episode and my review if you like. But so this feels a bit more of a stopgap episode than the first two, I guess maybe because it is in the middle of the season, like halfway through now, and overall it just doesn't feel as good as those. It doesn't feel as eventful as the first two or as interesting. Like the pacing was a bit draggy, but the pacing did drag a little bit at times. I think by the end it felt like there was a couple of times where the episode could have ended and then didn't. But I don't want to be like overly negative. Really, these are only nitpicks, and at the end of the day I think you're probably going to have a little bit of a filler episode. But there's still lots to enjoy in the episode. It's just overall it wasn't as good as the first two of the series. And another thing is, probably in this one it felt like some of like the gangster type stuff or the gang stuff, whatever you want to call it, it did feel like it was playing it a little too straight at times with some of the dialogue and interaction, whereas I think so far this series it's managed to keep things quite light and it manages to be quite subversive with some of the things it's doing and some like nice twists. There's a couple of reveals in this episode, and there are again a couple of moments where the scene plays out in a different way than you expect, so it definitely still has that. But yeah, unlike the first two episodes, there were scenes where it did feel a little bit bland, and it was like maybe the gangster type stuff was taken. I'm not sure gangster is the right genre to put it in, but the stuff with the two families and the factions, it felt like that stuff was being played a bit too straight rather than having a bit more of a lighter touch to it. But I'll start with one nitpick actually, and this was just a little bit surprising. Than the stuff with Ethan and the woman on the plane, the one who has ties to like the other family, that just sort of peters out, and we just see that they're both in Ireland now. Because I shouldn't complain really, because Ethan pairs up with Elliot in this episode, and that stuff is absolutely glorious. They're so good together, but it's just a bit funny than I expected there to be more of that. I kind of expected Ethan to slowly find out that she had some ties to what was happening. Now, I'm guessing at some point they will come across each other again, like the two plots will overlap, and yeah, then they will come up, and he's like, oh, okay, well, you're the girl on the plane, what the hell? That kind of moment. So we'll probably get more stuff with them when that happens. But it's just funny than I expected a little bit more, and then it just petered out and they were both there. I've got to say, her character I'm quite enjoying so far, and it seems like she could be quite a fun character, where in this one there's a little bit of like her chastising, like I'm not sure if she's a family member. I'm guessing she is, but it does seem like she's got quite a bit of power, and you've got her like chastising the other family member for like screwing things up, and we find out that she sort of put the hit out in the first place, and that it's almost like she's gonna like try and tidy up the mess. So we're definitely gonna see more of them. But I'll talk about the Ethan and Elliot / Eugene stuff, and I say Eugene because that's the name given to him in this episode. So when we start at that museum, or that place, the winery, the cellar, whatever you want to call it, like the head of like the other gang comes in, and he starts calling him like Eugene, and apparently that's his real name, or that's what he's calling him anyway. So it turns out that this Elliot appears as though he is dead, and I guess he must have taken his name or something, or ended up with his name. But of course, Elliot / Eugene doesn't really remember any of this, so this is all news to him. And that's quite a good scene, but it doesn't really, not much else comes of it. Like I'll just call him Elliot for the sake of simplicity, because he's got a gun and he sort of holds the other guy off, then they kind of go their separate ways. But the episode really starts cooking with the combination of Ethan and Elliot, like them just meeting, and I think it's the first time, because Ethan just knocks on his door, his hotel room. Sorry, there's a lot of stuff in this review. And yeah, first of all, Elliot's reaction to Ethan's name, Ethan Crumb, like him just having a little bit of a moment with that. It's like, I don't know if he actually says this, but his reaction is basically, what the fuck sort of name is that? And they're just a great combination throughout. Like, they're just so chalk and cheese, where Ethan is doing his whole thing about how he's a changed man, and he's doing everything to prove to Elliot that he's a good man now, and that he cares about Helen, and he wants to show her how he's changed, and just all the stuff with him, and talking about his Ned talks, as he calls them, and him doing bad singing to like a song in the car, and Elliot's reaction, and just everything involving them as a pair is so good in this. Like, the actors have great chemistry, and it's just because they're just so chalk and cheese, as I said. Like, so Ethan just doing his like colourful, touchy-feeling, quirky type stuff, like really cringe, and then Elliot having that very deadpan, let's get on with this reaction. It is just so great, and they just play off each other so well. So there's stuff in this episode with them where it could be like, this is dragging a little bit, or it's like, this is the plot slowing down a little bit because it's the middle of the season. But because I was enjoying their stuff so much, it didn't really bother me. Because at one point they track Helen's phone and a signal, and they sort of track it to like a forest, and then it's roughly where she's been, or where she lost her phone anyway, and then they eventually end up at Rory, that's the guy's house. And I'll talk more about Rory in a minute, because this is a big episode for him. But what's happened is he's kidnapped Helen, obviously. She's in his basement, and they go to the house, and they come in, and it's actually the mother, who I didn't realise she was able to walk around. I got the impression from the last time we saw her then probably she was, I mean, maybe she does have dementia or something. It appeared as though she had something like that, but she definitely seemed out of it. And I don't know, just because of the way Rory was like feeding her and stuff, and she wasn't responding, I thought maybe she didn't really have much of a whereabouts about her. But anyway, like, she answers the door, and she definitely seems very unaware of their presence, and just says like random general things. But this stuff is really well done, because Helen has managed to like trick Rory a bit and get herself loose, and she's convinced him to go shopping for things so that they can have like dinner or something like that. And he comes back, and he sees Elliot and Ethan there, and again there's a great sort of bit where Elliot introduces himself as Helen's boyfriend, and then Ethan pops around the corner. It's like, and I'm her ex, which is really funny. And the way this scene plays out is really tense. It's really well done, with Rory trying to convince them that, oh yeah, she was here because she was looking for you, and the whole case. And he does a little crack about, hey, case solved because you're here. And it's just really tense because all the time Helen is shouting or trying to get herself free, and there's a smell at one point which Ethan picks up on, and Rory claims it's like the pipes, and their back and forth about the pipes is really fun. And then it's like, would you shut up about the pipes? But it's a really well done scene, and what I like about this stuff in the episode, that being the Helen side, is it doesn't really play out how you think it's going to play, because eventually Rory talks them into the, like, okay, she was here, but she's not here anymore, and eventually they leave, and they decide to try and go to the other place where she was before this. But at that point you think, oh, okay, is she going to escape on her own? Which she does eventually, but not in the way you're maybe expecting. Or is she going to be stuck here for a while yet? And there's a nice little swerve here where as she's trying to escape, she looks at the mannequin of the ex-wife, who Rory says in this episode died from cancer, apparently. So she has an idea, and when he comes down, it turns out she's dressed like her. She's taken the dress and dressed like her, and I mean, after a while, he realizes it's Helen, but it's just a way to, like, appeal to him and get him back on side. And so she's like, well, why don't you cook us a proper dinner, and you can play. There's like a record that he has a memory of with Mary, I think his wife was, and she gets him to play that record and do it all fancy. But it's really great, this, because first of all, it doesn't play out how you think. Like, it's not as simple as Helen's just going to trick him and then she's going to, like, well, at one point it looks like she's going to stab him because they're doing, like, the slow dance to the record. But because he gets emotional again and breaks down, she actually doesn't. And I'm guessing it's the sort of thing where her better judgment kicked in anyway, where she felt, well, I can't really kill him even though he has kidnapped me. But so it doesn't really go the way you expect. And I think the beauty of it is that eventually, by appealing to certain aspects of his character, she just talks him into, like, just letting her go. And I think it's just a really well done scene, because there's bits of it where, even though he is being a bit creepy and unhinged, I think you do see a human side to Rory in this episode, and you do see that he's got psychological problems as a result of what happened with his wife, maybe his mother not being in the best of health, just things like that. And there is a side of Helen that feels sorry for him, even though he has done this horrific thing. And she says as she's leaving, like just hand yourself in, okay. And the actor who plays Rory is really good in this episode. And another thing I like is that he is surprisingly threatening, because for the most part, like, his whole thing is that he's been a very weak-willed sort of person, and he's been just very... I mean, there's been some comedy with him, but he has appeared as this more offbeat, quirky type character, and I guess that's what's fun about the twist with him. It is then it turns out there is darker stuff going on, and the way they've shown that has been really, really sort of fun to watch and a little bit unsettling as well. The other thing is, I'm not too sure. Like, it does feel like this may be the last we see of him at the end. Like, it does feel like maybe this rounds off his story, because when Helen leaves, there's another little bit with the mother, and because her whole thing in this episode is that she keeps repeating that then you should get yourself a wife, or I think he says it to Elliot at one point, he's a good boy but he needs to get himself a wife. And I think again, because of her condition, she's forgetting that he was married, and he's like, I did, Mum, remember, and shows her the picture. But the only other thing with this guy is, I was sort of convinced at the end of the last episode that he was one of the family, because, as in like the crime family, because there just seemed to be a link between the two scenes and the mannequins that Elliot was seeing, and then him having a mannequin of his dead wife, and it just felt natural that there was going to be a twist with that, and that it was going to turn out he was a part of the family. But I don't know now, because it wasn't confirmed in this episode, and things played out the way they did, and it feels like now this could be the last time we see him, so I'm not quite sure if that's going to be the case or not. I sort of hope it is, in a way, because, I don't know, it just feels like, although I enjoyed the stuff with the character, especially in this episode, it makes you wonder if there's that much of a point to him, if he doesn't like tie into the main plot so much. Like, it just feels in a way he's just something which is a threat to Helen, and I mean, I guess it ties in because he was investigating the case, and Helen felt, this is someone on my side, and then it turned out in a way he wasn't so much on her side, or just in the two sides like crossed over, and she was in the wrong place at the wrong time. But so maybe it's not going to turn out that he's a member of the family. I just thought they seemed to be linking the stuff with the mannequin, so I thought it might turn, but maybe that's all it is. It's like a visual link, like nothing more. But anyway, that stuff was really well done, and so there's a little bit more with Elliot in the episode. He finally gets to meet his mother, because at some point someone comes and picks him up, and they meet the mother. And one of the things he finds out is then he had a brother who died from the past, so that's something he learns. And he also learns at the end of the episode, when he's finally reunited with Helen, which again is a great scene, because it's very awkward, you know, when Ethan is there, and Helen's obviously like, whoa, what the hell are you doing here? And it's just all very awkward, and there's going to be some great stuff with that trio, I think. I'm guessing now they're going to be a trio till the end of the season, so there's lots of potential there. But the reveal at the end of the episode is Helen has done some digging with like the DNA that she got from the bottle, and it turns out that the younger guy in the other family, the guy who Elliot was with in the previous episode, it turns out he's Elliot's son. There's a DNA match, and he's his son, and whoa, that was quite something. And it's a good reveal, because it also means that the stuff with them in the previous episode, there's just more to that now, like their scenes together, and it just makes them mean a bit more, I think, now. And it also makes you wonder if the son knows, and maybe that's why he was being nicer to Elliot. That would make sense, but obviously we don't know if he knows or not at this point. But yeah, that was like a nice little twist at the end of the episode. So the episode overall, I think, is a solid one, and I think it's enjoyable. Another bit I enjoyed with Elliot and Ethan is in the bar, because they find out that Ethan's tracking everything, and that's kind of the last place that Helen went to before she went to the house, and they're just waiting for the guy who was on shift that night at the bar to like come around, and there's this whole thing like Ethan buys them both a Guinness, but Elliot's not in the mood for drinking, and you just get a whole bar fight, because when the guy finally comes, he's with someone else and they get into a fight, and then there's like Elliot gets in the crosshairs, and then there's another guy who comes along, and he's from the other family, so he's trying to bring Elliot back in for them, and it's later when they're on the road and they get picked up and he goes to meet the mother. But yeah, the whole bar fight and some of the antics in that was really good fun as well. So overall, definitely a solid episode, just not as good, I think, as the first two, but good stuff still. That's episode 3 of The Tourist, season 2. Let me know again what you've made of this season so far if you've been watching. Like and subscribe as always, and you can support me for just $1 a month on patreon.com/borednow. But I'll see you guys again soon.